Cheers, guys. Epix911, welcome to the Elitist Geek. VR news for Sunday, September 25th, 2016. Let's dive right into VR. Talk about Vanishing Realms real quick. Want to know what your guys' thoughts on that game are. If you've been following it at all, the author's pulling it out of early access, saying he's completed the objectives he set forth for Chapter 1 and 2. My personal take on that, and I've had discussions, I'm not sure if the viewer wanted me to bring up his name or not, but he felt otherwise, that, he believed he was still, there should be more content coming, or at least a price break for early adopters for the rest. So while I don't agree with that, I got nothing wrong if that's your opinion on it. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say on that. But for me, what was laid out there, that there would be Chapter 1 and 2 with enhancements. The last two updates were huge in terms of combat, AI, combat animation, the difficulty levels. So I was left satisfied, and I'm okay with the DLC aspect if, and here's the caveat, it's bang for the buck, worth it. So in other words, I'm not going to pay $20 for an hour or two. Not going to happen. As much as I like Vanishing Realms, I want to see a little bit of a cost benefit and be able to sink in more than just a couple of hours. And if it is just a couple of hours, in my opinion, the price should be a little bit lower. So yeah, let me know what your guys' thoughts on that are. Next up, I gotta admit, I've been jonesing for horror. Since I played Emily Wants to Play and the Elevator Ritual, I've kind of wanted to be scared again, which is kind of very strange. I'm not somebody who's thrill-seeking in terms of heights and rock climbing and all that, but I do like a good scare. And one of the things that I felt those two games relied on too much was the cheap jump scares. So I'm hoping moving forward, VR can really dig deeper into the psychological aspects of horror. The slow, plodding descent into insanity type horror. That would be freaking cool, and have it be deep and meaningful and lengthy. I think that would be fantastic. If you look at cockpit games as kind of being the most natural fit for virtual reality, and then you asked yourself a similar question, but said, okay, which genre could benefit the most from virtual reality? I would say you could make a good convincing argument for horror, because horror is all about delivering scares, and immersion, makes the experience feel more real, thus the potential to make the horror that much more scarring. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm hoping we get down the pipe. More, less cheap kind of jump scare horror and more psychological, just in-your-face terror would be great. Next up, the Oculus Touch support for Minecraft. It's announced, or was just announced, that it will be available October 18th, which is leading a lot of people to speculate, myself included, that the Oculus Touch is likely going to see a release within the first 3 weeks of October. And there's a couple of other things that kind of point to that. This is just one of them, but we'll get into that as I read through the news. There's one more item at the end, actually, and we'll touch on this again. But for me personally, it was great, the Rift version, but I think I preferred the modded version of Minecraft on the Vive better because of the Vive controllers. Now, I'm definitely going to try it again once the Oculus Touch controllers are released. So can't wait. So yeah, if the software is updated the 18th, my guess would be it's reasonable to assume, maybe near the end of the first week up to the end of October would be our release date for Oculus Touch here in North America, based on the advertisement, that German company had, lead me to believe that they could possibly see this as a phased worldwide distribution. So not a day one worldwide launch, in other words. Europeans, as always, kind of getting shafted and having to wait. But again, all speculation. Until these events happen, we just won't know. Next news piece, Inside Look. This is an Upload VR article about how investors evaluate augmented reality investments, virtual reality investments. And it's neat because you and me mostly, I'm not saying all of you, but most of you, like me, you're into virtual reality because of the game angle of it. And I think we agree that the more VR can do and offer outside of gaming, the better off we're going to be, because there's going to be an abundance of virtual reality units to write software for. Well, the investors, they don't necessarily look at the same stuff, and it was neat to kind of get input from them on what they do evaluate. And one of those is infrastructure upgrades. So right now in the United States of America, there's a huge push to roll out 5G all across, right? In other words, faster network speeds. And the VR investors see this as a real sign towards the evolution of the wireless unit, that it's a step in that direction. So that's kind of one of the KPIs or key performance indicators that they would look at to support companies. And then the other one is stuff like the Pokemon Go. That's pretty much a no-brainer. That did a lot for augmented reality investments because it proved so initially popular, right? I got to admit, it's pretty much died down about when I said it would, which was October. But for those first few weeks, man, was it popular. And then another example would be like Next VR, who, unlike a lot of the fisheye lens 360 content companies, these guys are doing really quality 360-degree stuff. They're a company that the investors really pay attention to as being potential for that side of VR, the media side of it. Tying into that with this next news piece is an author. He recorded parts of a virtual reality broadcast Fox Sports game and just kind of shows viewers in his video the kinds of issues he ran into. And the title of it is "Watching Football in VR is Kind of Terrible Right Now." And it's kind of funny, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it's also serious at the same time. It's all of those things. But it shows you how something that was always designed for TV, right? It's going to take a few more years for virtual reality to kind of get in there. 360-degree cameras, for example. When you've got live events like a concert, there's more of a dividing line. You've got the stage, you've got the audience, and that's pretty much it. Like that Joan Jett one I experienced, which was really high quality. Contrast that to the football game he was watching, which I believe was Ohio State versus Oklahoma college football. I'm not a pro on that. I saw the IO at the end, State, so I'm guessing that's Ohio State, but I could be wrong. Anyways, the types of issues he experienced was like lots of buffering, which we've had happen, which resulted in freezes, technical snafus in terms of audio and pixelation. And then probably the most funny was when he was on the sidelines. So he chose a sidelines angle. And as he put it, had plays blocked because of the bald guy to his front left and the state trooper to his front right, which just goes to show you, you can have all the, you think you're covering all your bases, but you're still not delivering, And football is like that because of the way a game is captured. Again, it's the way the television works on a football field. You can get cameras on the sidelines. Take hockey, my favorite spectator sport, for example, and the cameras aren't on the ice. They're all around the rink. Some are really high up, and they zoom in to get the action. There's goalie cams. There are some cameras, obviously, they have a new on-ice camera. So if you have streaming hockey packages like I do, you can be on the ice to watch the action. So that stuff is just going to take a while. Again, this was all geared towards TV. It's going to take a while to have virtual reality pull off as seamlessly as TV makes it look. Next news piece, VR digging into brick and mortar schools. And I like this article because I remember when I went to high school, 85 to 90, I graduated in 1990. The Commodore was huge at the time. Atari was still a force to be reckoned with. You could see the tide starting to change towards the IBM PC, clones, and VGA. But Commodore still meant something. And classrooms were all about Macintoshes. Generally Macintosh Classics, the black and white ones. But usually every school would have one or two Commodore machines tucked away somewhere, and they more often than not became the school favorites, for the gaming geeks like myself. It was no different in my school. We had a Commodore 64 in the library. We'd go there during lunches and play video games, bring our pirated discs in, and a Commodore Amiga 500, 2000 actually, in the drafting room, which we also played games on. Pretty much ignored the Mac Classics because that was all businessy stuff, right? Well, VR has that same potential. So if schools can't afford more than just a couple units, I can almost see, just like back in my time, how that could still just reach out to so many people. If you think inner city schools, not a lot of funding, just having a couple of these units out there can make a huge difference, in a child experiencing it and then wanting to be a part of that or have that be a part of his gaming. And of course, there's going to be schools, maybe they can budget more. You start to see things like classrooms that maybe they can't afford chemistry equipment because that can run easily into the thousands of dollars. Beakers and all those things, they are not cheap. Bunsen burners, all that stuff costs a lot of money. And if you could virtually offer those types of things, there's all kinds of potential to get those in the school system. So it's nice to see that starting. And then next up, October, which is going to kind of be the big VR month. I touched on that at the beginning, said we'd revisit it. So starting October 4th, we have the Google Daydream launch. On the 5th of October, literally the next day, we have the Oculus Dev Conference. And that, tying back into the start, is where I expect we will know when the Touch actual release date and price is going to be. That's my guess. And then, of course, on the 13th, no secret, PlayStation VR gets launched. And then the last thing I just want to end the video with, guys, is regarding the question, when will true virtual reality be a reality? Like, when is that going to be? Now, there was an interesting panel discussion, and there were experts in the industry, quote unquote, whenever I say experts, I use that term loosely, but anyways, self-professed experts who were discussing that exact topic. And I and others, I know I've had conversations with a lot of you guys, we all kind of believe that stuff is going to get smaller. We know that. And, one viewer even took what I said literally about the holodeck and kind of got a chuckle out of it, and rightfully so, that I meant that literally. Of course not. Of course, I don't think we're going to have a Star Trek holodeck with, Captain Kirk launching the successful technology with a wine bottle, smash it on the outside of the room. No, when I talk about holodeck, I'm speaking in terms of having comparable technology. When are we going to be at the point where the immersion factor that the holodeck can offer, we can get out of our technology? And what's that technology going to look like? It's probably nothing like the holodeck, right? Because that's going to probably look and it already is in a lot of ways, it looks so primitive the way they thought that technology solution. So no, that's what I'm referring to is, when do we get that? Well, the panel answered that very question. Of course, it's all, speculation, as with anything, but their guess is that we would require 81 times the power that we currently have. So that's processing and GPU power to deliver what they consider actual reality in a virtual setting. So very cool. To me, that figure sounds a little bit low, 81. If you look at how processor speeds double, factor of 2, you can hit that pretty quick. By 2030 something, we would have that. I think it's going to be a little longer, but curious what your thoughts are, guys. That's it for the news. As always, cheers, and definitely catch you on the VR flip side.